Families are choosing that their kids will get sick from preventable diseases. They're choosing not to get them vaccinated, and that has a cost in real dollars. After a flight delay of 8 months, the head of the airport gets his hearing to lead the FAA. Tina Peters goes on trial for kicking it with a police officer who tried to arrest her. A candidate for Denver mayor says his opponents are over-promising solutions to homelessness, but he says he will clear the encampments.
I think that's a big difference between me and some of the other campaigns is there are very clear lines of enforcement.
And what happens to the dream homes that we now know are not really given away in the Boys and Girls Club raffles? Tonight on Next. Emergency room docs in Colorado say they're seeing more kids come in with preventable diseases. Child vaccination rates have dropped since the start of the pandemic. Our Mark Salinger looks at the cost of those families' decisions.
We have a saying that, vaccines don't save lives, vaccinations save lives.
Inside Children's Hospital, doctors know they're treating patients who could have avoided ending up here.
That's always really challenging to see any kid sick, and it's worse when you know that something could have been done to prevent it.
Dr. Jessica Cataldi is a pediatrician and infectious disease specialist here. The conversation she has with families about vaccinating against preventable diseases like measles, the flu, or whooping cough have become harder.
Diseases that we can prevent and diseases that in some cases we even eliminated from the U.S. with vaccination are coming back and are now becoming more common again.
Her research found the pandemic caused routine childhood vaccinations to fall, and the numbers haven't picked back up. In fact, Colorado is struggling. Only 71% of children born in 2018 were fully vaccinated with the CDC's recommended vaccine series by age 2. That ranks Colorado 32nd in the nation. The goal was to have 90% vaccinated by that year.
People who I've learned from said, yeah, it's been decades since I saw measles, or it's been decades since I saw a kid with this kind of meningitis. We're seeing those things again.
Hospital charges to treat kids with the flu totaled more than $195 million in Colorado in 2020. Dr. Cataldi doesn't want to see any more kids who could have prevented a hospital stay.
At the end of the day, I think, okay, well, there's one more disease I have to worry about to the long list of diseases we already think about in childhood.
So this is a big change from just a short time ago. COVID is now considered a vaccine preventable disease. In fact, COVID and the flu, Kyle, now top the list of preventable diseases with the most hospitalizations in Colorado.
COVID changed so much, but I feel like it made a lot of these vaccine conversations more controversial than they used to be for more people.
Yeah, doctors say that now it's kind of changed the conversations that they have with families. Instead of saying, no, you have to get vaccinated, they meet them where they are. They sit there and answer questions and try and figure out how they can answer as many questions as needed to convince them to get the vaccine.
Well, if understanding and respect is the approach, that seems like it should be universally applicable. Mark, thank you. If there's one thing that Denver Airport CEO Phil Washington knows about, it is delays. Almost 8 months after President Joe Biden nominated him to lead the Federal Aviation Administration, Washington finally got his confirmation hearing today. Did not take long for Republicans on the committee to raise concerns about his lack of experience in aviation.
The nominee before us, Phil Washington, had a long and honorable career in the military. But he does not have any experience in aviation safety. This, quite simply, is a position he is not qualified for.
I understand some members of this committee have argued Phil lacks direct experience in aviation. We just heard that argument. I'm surprised by that because, as we've heard, he currently is running the third busiest airport on planet Earth.
Republicans on the committee say that Washington's experience managing various transit operations like RTD, the LA Metro, and most recently the Denver Airport is not comparable to long-term experience in aviation safety. Democrats argue the opposite, that his experience managing problems like this year's disastrous holiday travel delays is precisely what the FAA needs. No decision today on Washington's nomination. He's got a few weeks to answer more questions in writing. The FAA has been operating with an interim chief for almost a year after President Trump's nominee stepped down midterm. The trial for Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters starts this week. Not that trial. Tina Peters' other trial. Opening statements began this morning in her trial on misdemeanor obstruction charges. This is from when she was accused of illegally recording a court hearing and then started kicking at police officers who tried to take her into custody. Peters' felony trial, the one for tampering with election systems, that's been pushed till later this year so her defense team can look at evidence collected by the FBI. She's staying busy, though. She's currently running to lead the state Republican Party.
Tonight's next question came from a number of viewers after Marshall Zellinger's report last night on the Boys and Girls Club Mile High Raffle, which has never given away its advertised grand prize, a home. Not once in 14 years. Viewer named Ashley wants to know what happens to that grand prize home when it's not given away.
So, Ashley, the answer is the home stays with whoever owns it, because the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Denver does not own the home during the raffle. They told us that before the raffle, they negotiate a purchase price for the house if enough tickets get sold. And as Marshall has explained to us, in 14 years, they have never sold enough tickets. They have never given away the home. They would require 80,000 tickets to be sold for the raffle. The nonprofit tells us the most tickets they've ever sold is about 64,000. Our next conversation tonight is with a candidate for Denver mayor who says we need to, quote, plow the damn roads. State Senator Chris Hansen has plans to address crime and homelessness and housing like every other candidate, but he's also trying to seize on the frustration with Denver's method of letting the sun clear side streets after a snowstorm. I asked Hansen today how plow the damn roads might intersect with another of his priorities, a greener Denver.
We're still making snowplow plans based on climate data from 20 years ago. So we have to update these plans. Denver spends about $3 million a year on snowplowing. Most other major cities, like Minneapolis, where different sort of weather pattern, but they're spending $13–14 million a year, very similar size. So Denver's got to update our plan. We've got to be ready for these types of storms because climate change means we get wetter, heavier snows earlier in the season, and the solar plowing, as the city calls it, it's not going to be effective. And unfortunately, the December storm proved it.
But part of our snow mitigation plan is based on the fact that you don't want a ton of diesel traffic out there contributing to the brown cloud. You don't want to put a ton of particulates down. They get kicked up by the vehicles and end up in the brown cloud. So how is an environmentally focused mayor going to improve snow plowing without making that worse?
Yeah, well, here's the great news. When you plow right after a storm, you drastically reduce the amount of sand and grit that you need on the roads. That is the biggest cause for additional air pollution because as the cars ride over it, grinds it up, little tiny particles, and then they fly into the air and they unfortunately join the rest of the air pollution. So if we plow in an immediate and responsive way, it actually reduces the amount of need for sand and grit and improves our air quality.
My conversation with Chris Hansen continues in a moment with his plan to address homelessness, where he thinks that other candidates in the race are overpromising. There are nonprofits in Colorado that run highly complex projects across a number of service areas. And then there are others that do one thing, and only one thing, and they do it really well. This week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign supports the nonprofit Hands of the Carpenter. Hands has a seemingly simple mission. They provide reliable transportation to working single mothers with kids. Sometimes that means straight up giving a family a car. Sometimes that means repairing a car. Sometimes it means helping people who are unfamiliar with vehicle maintenance learn how to take care of their own vehicle. The nonprofit has been doing this work in our community for 20 years, and they just opened a second location so that they're able to serve families all over the metro area. Hands knows that reliable transportation can make all the difference in finding and keeping a job, or being able to get to and from job training or higher education. Reliable transportation can make all the difference in getting kids safely to and from childcare or school. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to get that link to donate. As always, I'll match the first 50 viewers who donate $5 to get us rolling. They call it the Good Neighbor Garage. It's a simple mission with a deep impact to help working single mothers in the Denver metro area succeed.
Mayoral candidate Chris Hansen says he wants to audit the $250 million Denver is spending on homelessness and end wasteful programs. But he draws the line at arresting people for violating the urban camping ban.
Let's be clear, arresting somebody for standing on the sidewalk is unconstitutional.
Our conversation continues next.
Chris Hansen's ads in the mayor's race suggest a crackdown on homelessness and crime. But Hansen is not among the candidates who think that people should be arrested if they refuse shelter or treatment. That sounds a lot like the situation that we have now. So how does your plan differ from the status quo?
Well, yeah, I think it's very different, Kyle. I mean, first of all, my plan involves a complete audit of how we're spending the money. And this is something I'm really trying to highlight with the voters because we're spending $250 million this year and seeing a negative result. So we need an immediate audit of how the city is spending money to get better results.
When you talk about the idea of auditing homeless spending, you get a lot of cheers from conservatives who think that there's malfeasance in the homeless spending and that your suggestion of an audit says that you think that there's something sketchy going on in there, and they'll use terms like the homeless industrial complex. They think people are getting rich off of homeless services. Do you think that's what's going on?
People are not getting rich off homeless services. When I say audit, I'm talking about having the budget match the most effective programs, and where we're not seeing success, quickly cut those programs. I'm very clear with the voters from day one of my campaign that we cannot have open camping and hope to be successful in Denver. But let's be clear, arresting somebody for standing on the sidewalk is unconstitutional. So I think that's a big difference between me and some of the other campaigns is there are very clear lines of enforcement, and that's where I want to see us do different from the status quo. Right now we're seeing encampments within blocks of where we're sitting that have been there for weeks and months. So we don't have clear enforcement right now, and that is something that I want to be very clear with the voters of how I would be different.
When you hear other folks in the race make some pretty big promises about this issue, Kelly Brough saying she's going to end unsanctioned camping in a year, Mike Johnson saying that he'll make Denver the first major city in America to end homelessness within one term. When you hear those big promises, what do you think?
Well, I think it's overpromising. I am a realist. I'm known at the Capitol of being very pragmatic in the way I try to approach tough policy discussions, and I think I've done the same thing with the Denver voters this time around. The Denver voters are smart. They know when somebody's overpromising. We can make massive progress in this issue, but to say I'm going to end it in a year would be unrealistic, and the Denver voters know that.
In our full 20-minute conversation, we talk about how Hansen would use his background in energy and environmental policy to make Denver a greener city that can save money. And we discuss why he's refusing to change an ad that colleagues of color say reinforces racist stereotypes. My full conversation with Chris Hansen is on the Next YouTube channel and on 9news.com. And tomorrow night on Next, we're going to have the results of our poll in the race for mayor. Hey, may I make a recommendation? It's one of the most impressive pieces of local journalism I've read in a while. It comes from another media outlet in town, but that's kind of the point of these recommendations. RTD is considering a ban on indefinite riding. It would kick unhoused people off trains where they currently find safety and warmth. Denverite has an incredibly powerful piece by Nathaniel Miner and photojournalist Kevin Beatty. They rode RTD for 20 hours straight to talk to other people riding for hours at a time. And they honestly describe the mundane moments, they describe the criminal conduct they observe, but what you're going to remember are the heartbreaking conversations with people who say they don't want to bother anybody, but they don't want to freeze on the streets. You can find that Denverite article linked on the Next Facebook page.
Meteorological winter officially over. Yes, that's December, January, and February, and we have once again broken another record. All right, it's a tie for the 14th coldest winter that we have seen here in the Denver metro area since records were kept. 28.5 degrees. That was the average temperature. Tonight, March 1st, meteorological spring has officially started. However, it does not look like it out there. We're tracking light snow showers around the Boulder area, mostly cloudy skies here downtown. Have not seen much here in the metro area. The high country has seen so much snowfall throughout the day. As we zoom in here to the Front Range, it really has been the north side of town that's picked up the most amount of snow as this wave has been pushing through right there around the I-25 corridor, Longmont, Broomfield, Arvada, even the west side out toward Golden, looking at a little bit of light snowfall. We'll watch that fill in here to Denver, but amounts are going to be pretty limited. I'd say less than an inch tops. As far as the advisories, the warnings, they're still in place across the western slope for an additional about 4 to 8 inches toward the San Juans. And if you're traveling I-70 heading out there toward Kansas, watch out for some blowing snow throughout much of the day tomorrow. Futurecast pretty much kicking out the snow as fast as it arrived. This is 11 o'clock. We're already looking at mostly cloudy skies here in Denver. Tomorrow morning will be a cloudy but dry start to the day, and then we'll be tracking increasing sunshine as the afternoon wears on. Still unsettled into southeastern Colorado throughout the afternoon, as they'll be looking at a little bit of light snowfall. Otherwise, soak in some of that afternoon sunshine with the clearing. Still going to be on the cooler side with highs sitting in the 40s here in town, 20s and 30s up in the mountains. Another chance for a bit of snow late Friday night, not much. The weekend arrives, we're looking good, and so far I have another system rolling in next Tuesday.
It's a literal class in kindness. students get a chance to form connections that defy generations.
I get along with them more better than kids my age.
A classroom storytelling project puts the spotlight on older Coloradans. Next.
Students at a school in Jefferson County have been learning about kindness and peer outreach. The test is not on paper. It was at an assisted living facility.
Hi, everybody.
We're at Jefferson High School.
This is something that I don't know if we've ever done at Jefferson.
Beautiful day. We're having a great time.
So we are hosting an intergenerational storytelling event, and so we started this morning with a craft and a get-to-know-you activity.
Who's this next to you?
My friend.
Alexis.
It's been really nice, and I have enjoyed getting to know Louis, and like this whole experience is just something that I've never had.
Just being with students, because I was a teacher all my life, and I taught in grade school, 1st through 8th, and then in junior high school. And
I really like talking to people that are way older than me because I get along with them more better than kids my age.
Go, make your own. I gotta say, he's my next door neighbor, so he's always doing that.
Yeah, he's always picking on you, huh?
See?
Look at him.
See?
I think it's good for everyone. The young people, it's good for the older people. We love meeting new people and exchanging ideas. Keeps us in tune.
Rolling in 3, 2, 1.
So the second half of this event is a storytelling event, and there's a set of maybe 10 or so questions about things that they've experienced in their life.
I've had a very enjoyable life, and
What's something that you would want to tell your younger self?
don't take everything real serious. Be true to yourself.
It was just really nice getting to know somebody that I didn't know and like learning her story.
I hope they didn't get my funny face.
It's been wonderful. I think this should have been done a long time ago.
That's sweet. A lot of laughter in that room. For families who are barely getting by, a broken down car can be a disaster. So this week we're boosting a nonprofit in our community that fixes those cars or gives families a new car if needed. That and your feedback's next. A longtime nonprofit in the Denver metro area, Hands of the Carpenter, knows that a broken down vehicle can lead to a cascade of problems for a struggling family. It could mean the loss of a job. It could mean kids not getting to school and falling behind on learning. So at its 2 garages on the west and east sides of town, Hands repairs the cars that it can repair for working single mothers. And when they can't repair a car, they try to give the family a working car, all for a fee that's affordable for each family. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to get the link to join me in donating to Hands. It's a simple way that together we can keep families that are working hard to succeed, literally, on the road. John writes in, is on snow plowing, because goodness knows everybody wants to talk about snow plowing all the time. Kyle, one thing that's overlooked with plowing streets in Denver is that if Denver doesn't plow the streets in a timely manner, the melting freeze cycle deteriorates the pavement, creates more potholes, diminishes the longevity of the pavement. That is something that we've talked about before. Yet it's interesting that in a 17-way race for mayor, only one of them, Chris Hansen, seems to have seized on this plowing the road thing. I don't know. Denver mayors have been booted for pretty much the exact same issue. Patrick writes in to say, just wanted to compliment you. Keep up the good work. I don't know how that got in the stack. I'm very sorry about that. We'll see you next time.